Namaste and welcome to Sustainability 100 Plus, ladies and gentlemen. This is an effort, a dialogue around sustainable development goals that we have done here at Network 18 in partnership with AB and BEF. So we are back with it again. And as we have done oftentimes in the past, we go state by state and try and understand the challenges and, of course, how we're working to overcome them and achieve the goals that we've set for ourselves. Circular economy is in focus, and of course, the state of Karnataka, because we are in the midst of the Karnataka State Summit. So let's get chatting and talking to people who are right in the thick of trying to achieve those goals that will ensure that over the next 100 years, there is some planet Earth, like we know it, for humanity that will come after us. So let's dive into this conversation straight away. Ashishji, where does India fare, glow, if we compare it with the rest of the world, developing economies, as far as this entire concept of circular economy? It's part of our philosophy as a nation, as a civilization, but how much are we putting it into practice?
As you rightly said, circularity and the principles of circular economy have been ingrained in our philosophy for centuries, for eons. Traditionally, as most of you in the show and also your audience would know, we've been working on the philosophy of reducing food waste. We've also been sort of using and reusing our clothes, handing them out within our families, but also to sort of our sort of friends and well-wishers. At the same time, over the last decade or so, there has been a strong fillip to adopting the principles of circularity. And India is actually one of the leaders, along with China, on adopting of circular economy principles around the world. As early as 2008, 2009, we were thinking about setting up a law on electronic waste management using principles of circularity. And of course, we have our several versions of the law have come in, but the principles of circularity are getting much more ingrained. In fact, the Prime Minister also announced this from the ramparts of the Red Fort a couple of years ago, that we are launching a mission circular economy. The Niti Aayog, which is the think tank of the government of India, has launched 11 committees which are sort of dealing with the topic of circularity in different sectors and in different waste streams. So I think we're doing quite a lot. Of course, a lot more needs to be done.
How do I replenish what I'm consuming? So let me ask you, Dr. Naresh Tyagiji, this is the biggest challenge. Now, if you look at beverages or if you look at fashion and retail, our biggest consumption is water. Along with that, of course, power, energy, and everything else. But when you're pulling water from the ground, how do you replenish it? How you ensure that whatever you have taken, you're also plowing it back, or you're ensuring that it is refurbished?
Thank you. I think in terms of reuse and recycle, it's not only water, all that material, natural resource, what we call, everything is very precious. And the way we consume all these natural resource is something which is very, very important, irrespective of whichever location you are, and as well as individual as a citizen. If I talk about that fashion and retail industry, this industry, if you see that Indian behavior, we always recycle and reuse. We have seen our cloth, how we getting all these recycle and reuse even through our generations. Coming to that water, being that water intensive industry, there are a lot of things which is required to be done for conserving that water. So one definitely is that how we have that less consumption, using some of the technology and innovation play very important role. How you get your material, which is use use of less water, as well as in your production system. Then other point is that how we have that practice of recycle and reusing it.
Now that we're coming to marketing, let me ask Vineet this. You are in the business, Vineet. I keep, whenever I speak with your colleagues, you're in the business of making barley water with a bit of a kick in it. So usually I quiz them on barley, but today I'm going to push you on the water aspect. So, what kind of R&D is happening? What kind of contribution is happening? Is AB and Bev also helping in building more lakes? Is it saying that it's going to create its own man-made lakes, etc., and reservoir, which will not only help the groundwater level, but you will also not be looking at the existing natural resources in terms of meeting your water requirement needs? Because India gets 96% of its water from the skies. So how you retain it, how you catch it, and how you use it, that's where the crux is.
No, absolutely. And I think there are a lot of initiatives that we as a cognizant organization have, and water stewardship is a very, very important lever for sustainability at AB InBev. And we see this another in two ways. First is improving water efficiency within the brewery is very, very important. That, as you rightly said, giving more rather than taking more. And addressing a lot of this community-linked water challenges, right? We have our breweries in places where water could be a challenge sometime, and we have to ensure that the communities are benefiting more with our presence, not getting lost with our presence, right? In terms of water, in fact, what we do to improve quality water access in a lot of these stressed communities, we have created a cumulative water recharge capacity to the close around 15 million hectoliters across 5 locations in India. This includes a watershed program. We have a very, very evolved watershed program. In fact, one of the global best practices that we proudly take back to our global colleagues as well. This is a watershed replenishment structures we have built, ranging from on-farm ponds to check dams, and promoting and conservation of water, and also soil, right? I mean, water and soil for intelligent, sustainable agriculture. It is deeply rooted, and I was hearing a lot of other panelists today talking about the 3R strategy, right? And it's very, very deeply rooted. Our philosophy on water stewardship is actually the base of our operations and is governed by this philosophy of 3Rs: the reduce, recycle, and reuse. And this has led to a lot of efficiency in our water usage within the breweries. We also have a partnership. We do a partnership with WaterAid, where we are further addressing this, complex interdependency we have of multiple stakeholders, to bring, clear KPI and clear results which are driven by actual numbers, and not just like at a macro level, but literally at a micro, at a community level as well.
Let me just bring in Ashok Banerjee, and he's been listening to everybody. There is one aspect is R&D. The other aspect is how are we going to make companies become cognizant of what they are doing, how they are contributing? Because we don't see companies, and you're working in Karnataka. So how do you incentivize organizations to put front page ads to say, we dug up and we created 100 artificial lakes across Karnataka? And even if we used, this is our debit, water debit, and this is the water credit. And then try and advertise that and talk about it. And of course there is a certain level of R&D, research and development, that is required in trying to push products. And I'm going to bring in Vijay Kumarji after this, as we move into the aspect of bamboo. But Ashokji.
So if you carefully look at it, the circular economy is still a new concept among many organizations, and they are still trying to figure out how to kind of go about with it. Some companies are more matured than others, but overall, if you look at it, whoever have kind of succeeded in certain attributes have kind of just touched the tip of the iceberg, and there is a whole lot of attributes to be kind of explored now again, coming from the R&D point and having companies kind of encourage on what they are doing from a circularity point of view. So, and there are multiple ways you could look at approaching it. Today will become more and more prominent as you go about, because companies, once they start taking actions, they would like to showcase this in your disclosures or in your public documents that you're tabling.
No, Vijay Kumarji, as policy, let's understand 2, 3, and I'm thinking as we are having this conversation, there are a lot of thoughts coming to mind. But first is about bamboo. There is so much bamboo in Karnataka, just like it is there in all the other parts of our country, even in the Northeast. Why is it not yet, despite the policy changes that the government of the day has brought in?
Into the details of bamboo, I would like to touch upon other 2 aspects, that is incentivization and R&D importance. I think incentivization is not a criteria at all. The mandatory provision should be there. One thing is there. It is a win-win situation. Awareness building should be there. It is a win-win situation for the nation, as we are conserving the resources, and then we are avoiding solid waste streaming around the country. and then it is cost cutting for the companies also. They will become more and more competitive by adopting circular economy rather than other way around. So they have to understand that it results in cost cutting. One example I will quote: thermal power stations. They had mountains of fly ash lying in their backyard, and they were not finding their place where to dump it. Like, new lands were acquired, but once they put some money into R&D, and they started teaching people how to make bricks out of this fly ash. Now entire fly ash mountain has disappeared. Now people are ready to buy fly ash at a cost. What was a liability for thermal power station, now it has become a resource for sale of that product, and they are monetizing fly ash today.
Thank you very, very much for joining us here on this conversation, Sustainability Dialogues 100 Plus. That's Sustainability 100 Plus. That's the dialogues that we are continuing.
Hi guys, we are amid the Karnataka State Summit, part of our programming plan where we look at various states and their sustainability. Also, we have the Sustainability 100 Plus Awards brewing to help us identify some of the best case studies. More on that later, but first let's jump on to our topic of the day, which is circular economy. And to discuss that and more, let me welcome Mr. Vikram Kirloskar on board. He's the Vice Chairman of Toyota Kirloskar Motors. Mr. Kirloskar, it's a pleasure to have you on board for this exciting conversation. Now, first things first, I'd like to know, we often hear words like circularity, net zero, carbon neutral. These are terms which have been hammered, and talked about for so many years and at so many occasions as well. Is it easier than done for conventional and legacy companies? What is your sense?
Well, climate change is there for real. If you look around the world, look at the glaciers, you look at the changes in weather that we're experiencing around the world. I'll tell you what we are doing as a company, and then I'll tell you what is my core idea on how to make the change. For us, there are three areas that we work on. One is the product, that is the cars itself. How do you manufacture cars or the product itself, which uses lower fuel, lower natural resources, and emits less? That's one area, and we're going in that direction. Second is the whole production process itself, right from the raw material to the finished product. How it is processed, how's the energy used in that, and how we can reduce the carbon content and the water content in this entire process. And the third, of course, is society itself. How does one change society to behave in a better manner so that you use less carbon? So these are the sort of the three areas I look at, and we as a company and we as a group look at, and I can give you examples on all three.
Before we talk about that, I want to know the overall India Inc. perspective. What is it that India is doing right, and what are perhaps some potential challenges or roadblocks that you foresee in adapting this circularity?
I, as a company, can do, as a large company, what we are doing, and in our production processes, we are pretty close to zero carbon. We use probably the least amount of energy for producing a car than anywhere in the world. We are more than 100% on renewable energies in our factory. We use zero fresh water. The only fresh water we use is for canteen. The rest is recirculated, recycled, cleaned, as well as we use a lot of rainwater harvesting. The second thing we are doing is we've set up an eco park. It's about a 25-acre eco park, which has variety of sections on teaching children to be aware of the environment. What are the different issues in the environment? And we also teach them what does it mean to be what does circular economy mean? Till now, we have trained about 30,000 children, school children. The way we approached our whole carbon reduction process also was by teaching all our team members what is the effect of carbon in their future. What is the effect on their children, what will climate change, how will climate change will affect them in the future. And that's how we got a mindset change.
What about R&D investments? How can we navigate the gaps in R&D that is needed to propel the adaptation of circularity at scale?
See, the moment you say, I need to get clean, innovations happen. Then you put up targets. You look at what you're doing, what is your target. You don't have to have a ultimate target. You can have a target where you improve every year. And innovations come out of that. R&D gets geared towards fulfilling that target, the difference between where you are and where you want to be.
Has there been any progress on standardizing a framework for impact measurement?
Now, impact measurement is very simple. Like I said, first is how much carbon you're reducing. It's easy to measure. What are your volatile chemicals which you are emitting from your facility? You can measure that almost every day. Okay, and are you reducing it? How much water you are using? Can you reduce it? I mean, how much plastic you're using. If I'm using 10 kilos today, can I make it 9.5 kilos next month? I think it's not so difficult to measure the impact.
But does a concept like circular initiatives, does it have a sound economic rationale?
That's what I said. No, in our case, all our investments in reduction of carbon, in the circular economy, have given us direct benefit on the bottom line.
But how do you explain that to MSMEs? Because adapt.
It's the same thing. If you reduce your costs, if I use less power, if I waste less, I will reduce my cost.
How long do you think it's going to take for adapting this particular initiative and adapting this way of doing business?
I think when people realize that their children's futures may be affected, the faster they will act on it.
On that note, Mr. Kirloskar, many thanks for taking time out and joining us for this engaging conversation. And guys, I urge you to stay on with us. We have a very exciting discussion coming up on Sustainability 100+ Awards.
Welcome all to the second edition of the Sustainability 100+. And we are together now to discuss a bit more about the Sustainability 100+ Leadership Awards. Now, what is this awards really about, right? We are going live on the 1st of August. The categories which are part of this award includes climate action, water stewardship, smart agro, circular packaging, social entrepreneurship, innovation. But what really are we doing in this? The purpose of this award, if we look at a larger level, is for recognizing champions in the space, helping them get connected to corporates, government bodies, and other organizations who can help scale up their solutions, and also just generally create this ecosystem where everyone else can take inspiration from all of the success stories happening in the space. I would like to invite in Namrata, and I think Namrata is someone who's sort of the champion in the larger space of ESG and sustainability in the country. Anyone who has anything to know, do, or wants to understand in that space, Namrata is sort of the go-to person along with her organization Futurescape. So Amrita, over to you. And with that larger theme that we have of the 100+ awards, and also of the concept of circularity, what would be your, I would say, insight or input in terms of what lies ahead, or what should corporates or sustainability champions in general should be doing or thinking about?
Thank you so much, Ashwin. I'm really delighted to be here today as part of the Sustainability 100+ second edition. And circularity is one of the most critical things in our lives that needs to be part of everyday living. The biggest problem is that all our cities across the world, not just India, are full of pollution and waste. And why is that? Because there are materials in our system that cannot be absorbed in by the natural environment. So they just lie there, discarded, wasteful, and there are mountains of waste that are lying around in these cities. There is much that needs to be done and can be done if we follow a circular system. And circular system, as you very well know, is really about the fact that when you take products, make them, consume them, and the end of life of the product should actually go back either into being reused or recycled, but should not just lie around wastefully. So these kind of awards that you're talking about, that the Sustainability 100 Plus Leadership Awards, are a really interesting way to spur the ecosystem ahead.
And what do you think, Namrata, about the concept of innovation sort of transforming the way sustainability and circular packaging works? Like, what is the how is innovation an enabler basically? What would be your inputs on that?
I've always believed, Ashwin, that small changes need to be made, large changes need to be made with policy, but fundamental changes to the way we produce things, the way we make things, can only happen through innovation. And why is that? Because 90% of our problems are really about the fact that either we have poorly designed products or we have the wrong materials in use. So if we were to design products in a better way, if we were to use better materials, then things might change. And it's that needs to be spurred on ahead. That can only happen through innovation. And when we talk about innovation, invariably we talk about startups. But it's not just startups, it's all of us. We can innovate around practices, we can innovate around behaviors, and organizations within themselves can start building in the entrepreneurial mindset in their employees so that they can actually figure out new ways of doing things.
How do you think corporates in general, or even startups or smaller NGOs or social development sector players, could start tapping more into the concepts of scalability? Maybe?
Scalability actually is our biggest challenge. And the issues around scalability are many. One, of course, is the fact that a business model or a new product or a new service that has been started may have traction with consumers, may not have traction with consumers. But on the other hand, if it does have traction, many times scalability also involves funding, the appropriate kind of funding and the appropriate kind of people that are associated with it. And the third and most critical element is technology. If we can handle these three issues well, then products and services around the circular economy can actually scale and scale fast, and we can have not just India level but world-class products and solutions that become part and parcel of the circular economy. And my hope really is that in 2030 these mountains of waste go away. That is my real hope.
Thank you so much, Namrata.
Thank you, Ashwin, for having me. It's been a pleasure.